Alrighty then. So we talked about the midterm. It's going to be on Blackboard, 40 questions, 60 minutes, all the normal stuff. It should not be that difficult for you, especially if you watch the video. And the video, I'm not trying to teach you the test, but I'm trying to, kind of distill whatever the course down to the essential aspects, things that you should understand, or if you don't understand, are going to be very detrimental to not only your performance on the test, but also your life. For certain things, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to read the questions, but I've got the questions in front of me, and I'll kind of hit on the highlights, and we'll just get started. So if you don't understand opportunity cost, you got a problem. Opportunity cost means that if you, go and spend money on a lot of little small things, and then an opportunity comes up for you financially in life, you're not going to have the money because you blew it all on little kind of piddly things. So I'm not saying to lead a super austere lifestyle, but realize that if you spend money on X, you can't spend money on Y. And if X is something that maybe you can get by or do cheaper or do whatever, then maybe you'll have some money when an opportunity comes around. I mean, right now, I'm not saying you guys are in this position right now, but man, if you've got some cash on hand, real estate is a bargain because interest rates are so stinking high, nobody can afford to buy a home. So sellers are kind of hurting, and there are some bargains to be had if you somehow have managed to squirrel away some cash, and everything in life is like that. So, we talked about, you obviously are generally, most of you are quite a bit younger than me, and you've got the time value of money. So if you start putting away money now in some sort of program that's got compound interest, you are going to be in a position. So anyway, opportunity cost is what you give up, as a result of making a decision. If you, everything's got an equal and an opposite reaction. If you spend money on coffee, cigarettes, liquor, whatever, and it adds up. I mean, I'm not saying to live like a monk here, but if you piddle away a bunch of money on silly stuff, it's money that could have been used for something else, which is opportunity cost. So if you don't understand opportunity cost, there's another question right here that's going to hit you again. So, if you have a new car but you still got student loan debt, again, you want to buy a house, you want to start getting into real estate, but you have payments and your student loans are still hanging over you. It's just not a good situation. So that's another aspect of opportunity cost. Retirement planning, when do you start? As soon as possible. And it doesn't have to be huge amounts of money. The best plan for a lot of people is to just set a percentage. And so what if it's not a whole lot of money right now? But if you set 10% now and you continue with 10% throughout the course of your life, that is going to accrue into a lot of money. If spending exceeds your income, that's not a sustainable situation. You need to reduce your spending somehow. Selling things, working extra hours, getting another job, that could get you maybe out of a scrape. But if your basic problem is that you're not living within your means, there's no long-term sustainable solution other than living within your means. So when we talk about liquidity, liquid assets, all that, it's about turning things into cash, the ability to cover debts. I'm not saying to keep a huge stash of cash. In fact, I'm constantly going through counts trying to see if there is some idle money, because idle money it's getting eroded by inflation. You're not, you have $100, $1,000, $10,000, it's not going to be worth $10,000 at the end of the year. It's going to be worth, the buying power of that is going to be eroded by inflation. You need to invest yourself in assets that are, kind of going to rise as the tide goes up. But anyway, getting back to liquidity. Liquidity is the ability of those assets to be turned back into cash. And cash by definition is 100% liquid because it is cash already. But other things, stocks and other stuff, can be turned back into cash. Now, this liquidity doesn't necessarily address the wisdom of selling. If the stocks or other investments are volatile and they happen to be down at that moment, that's not a great thing. The big example that we'll use for a non-liquid asset is real estate. Real estate, it takes some doing. It takes 6 weeks and a lot of other things to turn that into cash. So you don't necessarily want to be all in real estate. So we know long-term versus short-term. When it comes to liabilities, when it comes to taxes, when it comes to anything. Personal finance, the IRS, everybody defines long-term, short-term as 1 year. If it's less than a year, it's short-term. If it's longer than a year, it's long-term. If you made some money, it's going to get taxed at your as like wages. If you happen to be in a 25, 30, if you live in California, 63% tax rate, all of your short-term gains are going to be thrown in with your earned income. If it's long-term, depending on your tax bracket again, but generally it's going to be 15%. So, if market conditions prevail, it makes sense to keep things over a year. But anyway, if you got a bunch of loans and car loans and all that stuff, those would be long-term liabilities because they span over a year. How do you measure somebody's wealth? What's the easiest way? I mean, the size of the house? No, it's net worth. It's assets minus liabilities. And, if you have a huge house, but it's got a huge loan on it, well, that doesn't necessarily show a lot of net worth because even though it's $1 million home or $500,000, $600,000, anyway, if you owe on it, that doesn't necessarily increase your net worth. I'm not saying debt is a bad thing if it's at low interest, not credit card debt. That's horrible, but debt in a asset that's appreciated, that's called leverage. That is how people get wealthy, is by having a loan that's going up at, say, 3% on a piece of property that's going up at 6%, or using whatever. We'll get more into that when we get into investing, but anyway, net worth is your assets minus your liabilities. Why is it important to monitor your debt level? Because if you can't maintain that liquidity, if you can't cover your monthly payments, even though you've got this great house that's appreciating and all the rest of that, if your debt is out of control and you can't sustain the payments, it's all going to fail. So you need to, be able to monitor your debt level so that you make sure you can keep up with things. Money received today is worth more than money in the future, because if you're smart, you're going to invest that in something that's going to grow. So again, look at people who win the lottery and look at, well, actually, people who win the lottery are not a great example, but the people who are offering the lottery, they'll say, hey, you can have, $1 million today or 20 million 10 years from now. And you really do need to do the math to see what's the better deal. And most people can't wrap their head around it. They don't understand that, earning interest on interest can do fairly miraculous things. Time value of money, talked about that. Again, money today is much better. A hamburger today for money next Tuesday is a much better deal because you can work with it. Compounding, we know what compounding is, interest on interest. We know when we're filing taxes, you got to do it if you have to, in terms of you're claiming single as your withholding. But if you can, be married, I mean, I'm not saying to get married just for it, but although some people do, but at least claim head of household if you have some dependents. So you can be a single, single lifestyle, I guess you'd call it, unmarried. But if you've got people dependent upon you that are not claimed by somebody else that, fit in all the IRS categories, you definitely want to claim head of household because it's going to greatly reduce your tax burden. A couple problems in here about stock sales. You buy it for this price, and this year you keep it for that many years. What you need to know is, obviously, did you keep it more than a year? That's going to put you into a long-term capital gain situation. If you sold it for, bought it for one price, hopefully lower, and sold it for more, that's going to be the profit. Were there dividends involved? Dividends are, we'll talk more about this later, but dividends are, annual, normally annualized, at least for taxes, that are payments that come from the profits of the company. Again, there's more to it than that. You don't necessarily always want dividend stocks. But anyway, if there were dividends involved, that also represents an income. So you're going to do the math, and you're going to figure out, how much you made and whether there's a long or short-term gain, and you'll be fine on that question. If you purchase something on credit, will it help reduce your tax bill? For most things, no. If it's consumer debt, just general credit card, cars, any kind of whatever stuff. Well, basically, the answer is everything except for a home. There's special exceptions for real estate. And actually, that's even too general a term. All real estate is not, if you've got income property, that's not where you get the tax break. But you get the tax break for your own home. There are some things you can do in real estate where you get depreciated and the rest of that for income property. But the real great tax breaks are for the owner-occupied residence. And you could actually have a second home. But you can't have renters in it, though. They will come check on those people and you will be in trouble. What else? How do banks and financial institutions work? They pay you a lower rate on your savings than they charge the people they loan the money out to. Another question on liquidity that we already understand. A third question on liquidity. If you don't understand liquidity, you're going to be falling out of this tree and hit every branch. Stopping payment on a check. We haven't talked too much about this. I think I mentioned in class, but you kind of know how that works. Not that you write that many checks, but if a check happens to be lost or didn't end up being cleared, you can go to the bank and say, when that check is presented, I do not want it to be honored. Now, you better have pretty good justification. You can't just write somebody a check and then, because that's a criminal thing. But anyway, stopping payment on a check is something you can do if it's legitimate. We talked about the necessity for overdraft protection. Overdraft protection means that if a checking account, because you've got debits and checks and other things coming out of your checking account, if something goes wrong, you don't want to bounce the check. You do not want to have an overdraft situation because there's all sorts of penalties and essentially you've broken the law. So whatever they want to charge you, you can't really argue about it. So don't let that happen. Have some overdraft protection, which means generally it'll roll onto a credit card. Reasons to borrow money. A bad one is everyday living expenses. If it's, if something fairly horrific has happened in your life, hopefully you had an emergency fund. But if you're just getting beat down with multiple things, then yeah, maybe you have to borrow some money. But if you're borrowing money from friends or businesses or whatever just to get by, something's got to give. That's not sustainable. So anyway, what do you want to be with credit cards? You want to be a convenience user. Credit cards can be a great thing, or they can be, indentured servitude. You can be a slave to your credit cards if you don't pay them off. And the interest rates are horrific. Things about cash advances on credit cards. They are not like an ATM card. They don't come directly out of your checking account. They roll on your credit card bill. But there's other things. There's normally a per use fee of like $20. Plus, they start charging you interest on it from day one. You can't take, say, $200 on your credit card and just pay $200 back. By the time you even do it, there's no grace period. You're going to owe well in excess of $200. Visa, MasterCard can be an excellent source of emergency funds. You know, if you can manage credit cards, they can definitely help you out. Finance charges, if you pay the bill each month, you won't have them. APR, annual percentage rate, only means one thing. If you're comparing loans, you want to see APR next to whatever rate you're looking at. If it's, some other rate and it doesn't have APR behind it, it's meaningless. You can't compare that to anything else. And there will be one rate in there that says APR on it. The cough continues. Good practice to review your credit card statement. Yeah, you need to look at it as quickly as possible. In fact, I just lost credit cards yesterday. Had some bogus charges. I mean, I was stupidly on some whatever website and good price. Anyway, I knew I was putting things at risk, and I think the timing of it's pretty suspicious. But anyway, that credit card ended up with all kinds of bogus charges, and they just sent me on a new one. The other thing with that is, they said, oh, we're going to cancel your credit card and we'll send you out a new credit card within a week or something like that. That's not good enough. Call them and say, I need it expedited. And they will, because this happens to me once a year at least. And, they'll overnight mail it. And I've got the new credit card today. And the other one only went out yesterday. So, anyway, it's much better. If you're getting a loan, collateral is your friend. Collateral means that the bank has some sort of recourse. They've got something that's tied to that loan, whether it be, a vehicle, a home, whatever. It's a secured loan. You don't want an unsecured loan. I mean, because the interest rate on it's going to be very, very high because that lender is at risk. You don't want the lender being uncomfortable. They're going to translate their level of risk into an interest rate. If they've got nothing to come after, they're going to be charging you an interest rate, just shy of 30%. If they have a home, a vehicle, whatever, it's definitely going to be less than 10. So it should be a lot less than 10, but that's not the nature of the economy right now. But anyway, collateral is a good thing. So secured loans, security is what is the collateral. They're all related. Co-signing, don't do it. Bad idea. The co-signer, the person who needs the co-signer, for one reason or another, I mean, they may be a great person, but they don't have good credit, or they're trying to get too big a loan, and the bank's like, yeah, there's no way we're going to give you a loan because you represent a huge risk. So how about you get, your friend, some family, whatever, to be a co-signer, which means that you as the co-signer are on the hook for it. And again, bill collectors are not going to deal with the originator of the loan because that person, they probably don't have the money anyway. Why hound that person? They'll go after the person who co-signed it because they did have the money. When you purchase a home, you do not pay the commission. The seller pays the commission. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Disadvantage of neighborhood associations. I could go on all day, but the one they, covenants, restrictions, decorations, trailers. I mean, again, it depends what side of this argument you're on. You know, if you're the neighbor and the guy next door is just, in fact, I my first home I bought up here, I got a pretty good deal on it because this person that lives next to me has got every Alaskan toy, and you can take an inventory because they're all in his front yard. It is just a anyway, but yeah, I mean he's a good guy and all, but yeah, definitely when he's been there longer than I thought he would be. But if he ever moves away, my property value is probably going to go up a little bit as things get back to normal. But the thing about that neighborhood, I knew when I drove up and I saw everything in his yard, I kind of liked it, to tell you the truth, because it's like no matter what I do. In fact, in my current place, I am very loud. I've got the loudest dogs, livestock, tractors, everything. And I'm still not the loudest person, but it helps to have 100 acres or so I don't have close neighbors. But anyway, I don't ever want to be the loudest person, and so I kind of enjoy when other people are louder or don't keep up things as well as I do. Man, we're off on a tangent. We're talking about what the heck is this question about? Oh, okay. We're talking fixed rate mortgages. The beauty of fixed rate mortgages, when you're comparing it to a rental situation, let's say it's kind of close. Let's say it'll cost you $2,000 a month to be in a house, but you can rent for $1,800 a month. Now, there's a lot more moving parts. There's a lot more things involved. But the deal is that the fixed rate 30-year mortgage is the standard. 30 years from now, let's say your mortgage is $2,000. Well, when that rent on the place goes up to $2,000 next year, $2,500, probably $5,000 by the end of that 30-year mortgage or 30-year rental, if you were to stay there, that fixed mortgage will still be at the $2,000. So it really pays off in the long run. And the beauty of a fixed rate mortgage is that it stays low. Now, sometimes you can get into the next question. Relates to ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, and sometimes it's necessary to get into an ARM. It's a little dicier because it's indexed to the interest rates, but if you can secure the home and hope that interest rates go down or stabilize at some point in the future, then you refinance, you get rid of that ARM, and you get into that fixed rate. To sit there and interest rates are 7-8% right now, and none of us are getting any younger, and so to give up 4 or 5 years of your life waiting for interest rates to get down to a normal rate, you're kind of giving up a little bit of life. Maybe the situation is to get in an ARM and then move on. Not providing financial advice. Talk to your mortgage broker, but that's one of the primary reasons people use ARMs. Getting in insurance stuff. You can do all sorts of things to avoid risk, accept risk, insure against risk, but ignoring risk, pretend that it'll never happen to me, that's not a good strategy. So if you're going to live life, you got to accept the fact that there's going to be some risk involved, and how are you going to deal with that? On an automobile policy, we talked about comprehensive insurance. That's kind of the cats and dogs. Everything else. We know what a deductible is with pretty much everything. It's most prevalent in homeowners and auto insurance, but let's say you've got a couple $1,000s worth of damage to your vehicle, and you've got a $500 deductible. The insurance company is only going to pay $1,500, and that other $500 is your deductible. That's what you pay for. But again, you can adjust that deductible upward to lower your insurance rate, with the understanding that if something bad happens, you're going to have to come up with that money. Anyway, things that are not covered under a standard homeowners policy: floods. Floods are that's a federal policy, separate policy, quite a bit more expensive. And when you're looking at real estate, if they say this isn't a flood zone, I mean, it's one thing. If it's on the coast, and man, that's just so beautiful. I mean, that's why I've always done it. And most of the property I've had has been waterfront. But if it's and that just because it's waterfront doesn't necessarily mean it's in a flood zone. FEMA, Federal Emergency Management, whatever, they've got their flood zone depictions. And if you're in a flood zone and you have a mortgage, you are going to have flood insurance per the terms of the mortgage, and it is going to be expensive. But especially in Alaska, geologic things happen quickly, and my property, in the time I bought it, is no longer, well, most of the property is no longer in a flood zone. All they're concerned about is structures. Everything else just kind of gets a nice cleaning wash. Although flood water, maybe not in Alaska, but other places, it's pretty nasty, because if it happens in the lower 48, it's basically sewage, and it's like flood damaged cars. It's not like clean water was around those things. It was poopy. Anyway, valuable property. If you have something in your possession and you're going to have a general homeowner's policy, you want to make sure that you have delineated that you have fessed up and said, look, I need a rider, personal property floater, some sort of addendum, some sort of addition to the contract that says, the jewelry or camera equipment or guns are in excess of whatever, $10,000, and so I want to make sure I've got coverage for that. Homeowners premiums. Yep. One quick way to do it is increase that deductible. If you increase the deductible, the insurance company, and insurance is a nasty business. I had blew out some pipes and flooded some flooring, and I called up the insurance agent and was ready to file a claim. She said, well, if you file this claim, we're going to raise your rates. Do you just not want to pay for it yourself? I'm like, what's the point of having insurance? It was frustrating, but she was right. If I have to pay $3 or $4 to put in new flooring versus have my insurance rate go up by a couple $100 a month, I mean, either way, I'm out of pocket, so not good. And then the last question has to do with health insurance. What's the good news about health insurance? There's really no good news, other than most of the time it's subsidized by the employer. So if you're working for somebody, the real trend here, and it's, well, whatever. If you're a company and you're trying to hire somebody and you say, we'll pay you $100,000 with no benefits, or we'll pay you $80,000 with full benefits, most people are going to go, oh, I'll take the $100,000. And so the employers aren't stupid. Those benefits cost them a lot of money, so they can offer a higher salary and just scrimp on the benefits. And that's generally the way things are going. Funded pension plans are kind of gone by the wayside, and a lot of the benefits have been just whittled away to provide a higher salary. Or sometimes you get hit both ways. We give you a crummy salary and we give you no benefits. So I'm aware of that as well. But anyway, the good news is that most of the time, also because it's a group policy, your cheapest, best option is typically to go with a group health insurance plan covered by your employer. All right, so that's going to be the test. It'll be posted. It'll be open all week. I know everybody procrastinates. It will close at midnight on Saturday of next week. I'll get an email, somebody on Sunday saying, I didn't know. Anyway, you'll have the announcement. You've got the fair warning. It's not going to be that difficult, but certainly you can see the value of this video. Might be challenging without it. Good luck.